Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. It is your host here, Annalena. And today I just want to talk a little bit real and raw from behind the scenes. And I actually want to begin with the most important announcement that I will be shifting to bi-weekly episodes on this podcast. And the reason is simply that I have been feeling a little bit like I should post every week. And I know that there's a lot of episodes on this podcast, and I think I will be operating from fear if I just keep pushing myself to put an episode out every single week rather than surrendering to what feels right to me in this moment. Because that's what I always preach, and I teach my clients so much. So it's really important for me to walk my talk. And yeah, this also gives you more time to integrate. And you probably also know by now that I always say less is more. And maybe I have been putting too much content out there, and I just feel like I want to put out less and with a little bit more intention. So that's the first thing. The other thing, also, actually, which is funny, when I first started this podcast over almost now 3.5 years ago, in the very first episode, I believe I did say that I'm committing to bi weekly episodes, but then I always ended up having weekly episodes. So that's just an interesting observation for me. The other thing that I also want to talk about is this whole shift with true sidereal. You probably know that I have been talking about human design and also gene keys for many, many years. I'm absolutely passionate about it. And not so much about the 5 human design types anymore, because I have found that this is just very generalized knowledge. But where I have really found the most magic is in these 64 gates in the human design chart. Also, you find more wisdom here in the 64 gene keys. And then I have created something called the 64 genius archetypes, which is basically a synthesis of the human design gates and the gene keys and bringing my own practical language into that, because that's what people always ask me over and over again. And with that, eventually I discovered that astrology is actually behind how we calculate human design charts and also the gene keys profile. And I was never really interested in it. But when my clients kept asking me, and I'm always here to respond, especially as a generator type, well, I believe we're all here to respond to life, no matter what your human design type is. This question of, can we talk about sidereal came up, and I was like, okay, of course, let's look into it. And I always love new things. And while I had heard about it years earlier, I simply wasn't interested in it at the time. When it came to me a year and a half ago, I was like, ooh, there's something there, and it's really exciting. And I was really open-minded for the first time to really understand what it really means. And this is what I learned. So traditional human design is using tropical astrology calculations. And tropical astrology is using a view of the sky, meaning if you look up straight in the sky, right, and what you see, like the sun is in Aquarius, for example, you would actually see the sun in Aquarius. And that's what it looked like 2000-ish years ago. But because we have something called the precession of the equinoxes, what happens in the actual sky is that at the time of the spring equinox, where we always in tropical say that we are 0 degree Aries, what has been happening is that there is a slight shift. And this shift is only 1 degree-ish every 72 years that it shifts in the sky, right? And this doesn't make a big difference from one to another year. You may not even notice it. But over 2000 years, what this means, we almost have a whole sign difference in the sky. So now, if you look up into the sky at the spring equinox, you're going to see that the sun is actually deep in Pisces. It's not in Aries, right? And as I'm recording this right now, we are actually still in Taurus season, and we are just about to move into Gemini, I think by the end of the week or early next week. And in tropical astrology, we are already like way further up in the sky. And for me, as an example, I was born early February, and I always thought that my sun sign is Aquarius. But when you have looked up into the sky when I was really born in 1982, the sun was actually up in the real sky in Capricorn. And to me, that feels much more real and natural while also I don't want to over-identify with a sun sign, right? That's also quite a generalization, and most likely we can relate to all signs in some way. But I do think there is some underlying strong energy from our sun sign for sure, right? Just like also some of these archetypes in human design and these 64 gates as well. And also from these 5 types that we have in human design. So when I understood this, really also with the math behind, I was like, oh, wow, like I cannot even believe how easily we just believe things and we don't even want to question anything, you know? And for me, it was like, I want to follow my truth, you know? And it wasn't easy at the time because my whole business was set up with tropical astrology calculations behind human design and also gene keys. And while it had provided me very profound transformation and breakthroughs for sure, I still felt a little bit stuck and something felt off. And when the true Sidereal came into my world and my human design chart changed and my gene keys profile changed with those new calculations, I was just like, wow, this feels like I got a chiropractic adjustment and now it fits, you know? And in my little Annalena logic, for me, the way I would describe tropical is like you're bending forwards, right? So it's moving too fast in some way. It doesn't take into account the natural slowing down through the wobble of the earth. And I was like, maybe this is why the whole society is so rushed, because we are following these astrology themes, which is mainly out there, right? In the newspapers, in mainstream media, here on YouTube, podcasts, everywhere. And it's so crazy to me because when somebody says something, oh, the new moon is in such and such sign, it's never what's really up in the sky whenever you reference into tropical. And that's just a little bit of insanity to me, at least at this point. It's actually becoming hard for me to grasp how we operate in this way. Then the other thing that I also learned in human design, while in the traditional human design, we are using these tropical astrology calculations to create these human design charts, we also have something called global cycles. You may probably have heard about this year 2027, and we're supposed to shift into the incarnation cross of the sleeping phoenix. Now, these whole global cycles only exist because human design actually knows that there is a precession of the equinoxes and that we have a shift in the sky happening. And to me, you can even look this up on the Jovian archive. I actually found an article there where they talk about it. And I was just like, wow, I'm a little bit baffled how, okay, for global cycles, we are following more what's supposed to be really in the sky, but for the actual personal birth charts for you and me and for everyone, we're using a view of the sky from 2000 years ago. So for me, it just doesn't match, you know? And I also believe that every system we are being given as a tool to discover who we really are, we're here to question things and we're here to evolve and change things. And I definitely know in my heart that I'm not here to just follow something that is supposed to be a certain way and you have to follow it to the T. Rather, I have learned through this system, actually, which is human design, to trust myself. And trusting myself have led me to this new way of calculating human design charts with much more accurate calculations that are in alignment with what's straight up in the sky, right? That just feels right to me. And I also always follow what my clients ask me for. And since I made this shift, it has been overwhelmingly amazing. I actually want to thank all of you for your support, for your encouragement, for your messages that I have been receiving repeatedly, because you have thanked me so much that I have had the courage to talk more about it. While there's many other amazing of my colleagues out there that have also been using this for quite some time. And we also had a summit last year in December that was really successful and very well received, the True Sidereal Summit. I definitely plan to run this again at the end of this year. Again, with Ethan Chimenti. He is the astrologer that brought True Sidereal into the world, and I'm just super thankful for his work. And I also invite you to check it out. His website is called Mastering the Zodiac. I will post some links to that as well. Also, if you want to get your True Sidereal astrology report, they're actually having an amazing sale going on right now. I'm going to put that also in the in the show notes here below this podcast, because that True Sidereal astrology report, when I read it for the first time, I was like, okay, there's nothing that I have to add. I felt so seen, and everything that was just off in my tropical astrology chart, like it fit so spot on, and it was just like, when you feel so seen and you finally feel like, oh, I don't have to keep searching for all the answers. It was just this confirmation that I needed about myself in some way, right? And then, of course, I have been mainly working now on applying these calculations to the human design charts. That's another thing I want to talk about. So we still are in a little bit of a gray phase here because we still don't have a super reliable way of pulling these true sidereal human design charts. We have been having a website called Cosmic Human Design for quite some time that I also first used, but then I shifted away from it because it's not currently being updated anymore. And I really love the design of Genetic Matrix, so I have been using that. But we still have to make manual calculations using Genetic Matrix. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, I have done some videos. You probably just search for True Sidereal, and you can find how you can make these manual adjustments in Genetic Matrix with the Pro version. But again, this is also not super practical, especially if people just want to pull that chart and they don't want to have the Pro version or figure out how to do this manually and then wonder if this is correct. So the good news is that I am currently in collaboration with the people from BodyGraph. They reached out to me a while ago and asked me if I'm interested to use their software, which is a software you can put onto your own website so people can pull their own human design charts on your website. And I told them I'm really interested. However, it doesn't work for me because I no longer use tropical astrology behind the calculations. I use something with True Sidereal. And they asked me some more questions about it, and then they were willing and open to actually work on this together. And I was like super happy about it. And so this is currently in the works. We're still in the testing phase with that. And I still cannot give you a 100% guarantee that it's going to be perfect and working, but it looks pretty promising. I want to say that, right? I just want to also take the time necessary to make it all well-rounded and also approved by Ethan Chimenti, the True Sidereal astrologer, because I know that so many people have been waiting for it, and we have been having like some calculations and then slightly changes, but they're still very, very similar, because in human design, what happens if you have 1 degree change, your whole human design chart can change, because if just one gate changes, you can literally have a different type, a different profile, and all of these things. And that's often hard to understand for people. This is also one of the reasons why, for me, the whole type thing in human design is a little bit overrated, if you ask me, right? Because it's so much more than just these human design types. So this is some really exciting news, I think. So I think in the next 2 or 3 months, maybe much sooner, there will most likely be a way where you can pull True Sidereal human design charts, and also something that's similar to the Gene Keys version with the True Sidereal calculations, because I know all of you want this and you have been asking for it. And most likely this will be then available also on my website, where you can just pull your charts. And maybe I will also offer some kind of reports with your human design chart as well, so you can get some additional insights into this. So that's what's currently going on. I have been also a little bit more quiet because it's all taking a little bit longer than I thought. You get really excited about it, and then you have expectations, and I'm always like, okay, I need to surrender to how this is going to look like. And believe me, like, people already asked me for this like a year ago, and I was like, I'm not a programmer. I don't know how to do this. And everybody was like, Annalena, so when are you going to have the calculator, so we can run our True Sidereal charts? And I was like, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm putting my feelers out into the universe. And it seems to be coming along, because I really trust that God source universe, is just putting the right people together and is giving me and other people just the right next step, or where we follow the breadcrumbs of the universe. That's how I really feel. And hence also, I'm really trusting that it's meant to evolve in this way. And the other thing that I want to wrap this up with since the beginning of January, it started on my birthday actually, I have been sharing daily videos on my YouTube channel from this beautiful book, Your Big Leap Year by Gay Hendricks. And he was even on this podcast a few months ago. I highly recommend you catch this episode. I mean, Gay Hendricks is such an amazing human and he has so much wisdom to share. It's just incredible. And I felt really called to go through this book myself. And, since I have a podcast YouTube channel, I was like, let me just share these daily insights with people because if it's going to help me, I'm sure it can help other people as well. Plus, I like it for accountability. So this is another thing that I invite you. This is on my YouTube channel. This is not on the actual podcast, where there is a playlist. And I'm also going to put this in the comments below where I have been sharing these daily Big Leap Year journey videos. There between 2 to 6 minutes, depending on the day. And I think I'm around day 126 or 27 or so. And it's been a pretty impactful journey. And this is all about spending more time in my zone of genius, right? So I think this is also part why I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do bi-weekly podcast episodes for now, at least commit to that. If I feel inspired to put out more, by all means, right? But it's important for me to announce this so I can fully relax into this because you guys know that I have been putting out weekly podcasts and you would probably expect weekly podcasts unless I say something, right? So that's just important to address this officially. And yeah, in this big leap year journey, anything that is just not in my zone of genius or where I feel like I'm falling into the shoulds or I have to do something that has no space in there. This is why I have been letting go of many things actually in my business and restructuring things and simplifying things. And now also during the summer, I like to take a little bit slower, spend time with family more. And again, there's lots and lots of content that you can binge on if you like in the meantime. And with that, I'm sending you all my love, all my blessings. And we will be back in a few weeks for another episode. Ciao, everyone.